David, take us back to probably the most tragic day one of the most tragic days that was in the history of your territory. And of course, you were on the airplane ride to over to where was it, Wilmington or somewhere like that.
Yeah.
Tell set that up for us and kind of.
Right.
A lot of people don't remember that, and a lot of people sure hadn't ever heard the story.
All right. It was a Sunday, because Wilmington was in the summertime on a Sunday. We probably ran it maybe once a month then, and it was put on by the Wilmington Soccer Association at the football stadium. Jimmy was supposed to be on that plane. Jimmy was sick. He asked me to go. I said, okay, I'll go. Eddie Godwin was the promoter for the association down there. I figured I could get some seafood. Come on.
Come on.
There are other motives to go. Yeah. So I said, sure. And so it was a Cessna 402 Navajo. It was a 6-passenger or 6-person plane. You had the pilot, co-pilot behind him, and then it was pilot Johnny Valentine, Tim Woods, Mr. Wrestling, Ric Flair, Bob Bruggers. Yeah, and I mentioned Tim Woods was in front of me. And so we took off. It was a 45-minute flight. And the pilot, Eddie Fargus, I think that was his name, who was a Vietnam vet helicopter pilot.
I'd flown with Eddie a lot.
Pardon?
I had flown with Eddie a lot. He was a Vietnam pilot.
Yeah. So when we got close to Wilmington, say around Lumberton, North Carolina, Florence, one of the engines started sputtering. So he feathered, I want to say, the right engine. There's a lot of this that I had a pretty horrible concussion, which some I don't remember, some I don't, so to speak, I've been told. All right. Which to this day, I don't know why we didn't land in Lumberton or Florence. Florence had an airport. They had commercial traffic. So I don't know. So we went on the way down there. And as we were approaching, going over the Cape Fear River, the other engine started to sputter. And I'm going, oh my God. I was thinking of Gary Hart and the guys that crashed.
Right.
And here my son Mark was 2 weeks old. Wow. And I'm thinking about that. And so I'm trying to, I'm leaning forward in my seat, trying to.
Was the pilot making announcements that we're in trouble, or?
Oh yeah. I mean, once that engine feathered on the right-hand side, it was a very quiet plane. Uh-huh. Very quiet. I mean, no one said a word. And when the left one over the Cape Fear started, I mean, and I was just hoping, God, please don't crash in Cape Fear River, because I've got all the beef in front of me, so to speak. And there's the door there, and there's no way I'll get that. There was Bob Ruggers was right here. There was a luggage compartment door back there. And I said, maybe, just maybe, I might do that. I mean, and then I'm thinking, well, I don't want to get the breath knocked out of me and sort of get knocked out. And so I'm trying to control my breathing, and I bent over, sort of in the crash position. And the last thing I remember was I heard a noise and saw a light beeping on the console, the pilot. And that's the last thing I remember. Now, my father-in-law, who is was a pilot, he's passed away. he said that beeping noise and the light was probably as he got over Cape Fear and on the approach to a runway that directed, they had to go over the county prison camp, which had a water tower. And he was coming too close to the water tower, according to the FAA report, that he tried to pull up. Well, that stalled it. And he said that was the buzzer and that was the light you heard, that the stall warning. And that's when it nosedived into the railroad embankment.
So it nosedived from that point then.
Yeah,
Wow.
and it hit going 80 some miles an hour. You know, you look at the speedometer that's stuck. And so I was asking Valentine several years later, you know, because he went through so many things trying to walk, because, you know, his spine was severed along with Bob Brugger's. You know, Bob wasn't as bad, but he had to have metal rods in his back to support his back. That I said, I don't remember. And and John Valentine said, David, be happy that you don't remember. He said, we were the last ones they took out of the plane. He said he didn't realize that his spine was severed. He thought that his legs were trapped by metal or something. He couldn't get out. You know, but he said the fuel smell and just everything. He just, you know, he said, we're going to burn up or something. But it was, I guess, because of maybe my head injury, because I went through the seat and hit Tim Woods in the back and cracked right along his spine, his ribs. And I was split from here to here, down, shattered several teeth up here. They were just dangling it up, but they couldn't tell because there were so many facial injuries. And the concussion, and I dislocated my shoulder, and they didn't know about that until they gave me crutches to leave because I broke my ankle too. And they tried to give me crutches, but my right arm wouldn't work. And they said, oh, his shoulder's dislocated. So, you know, they gave me drugs and popped that back in, I guess. But that's, you know, and Tim, talking about kayfabe, Tim, being the professional that he was, he left the hospital that night so nobody would know that he was there. So the press and people would not get him because he had those cracked ribs, but he was mobile and the rest of us weren't. You know, Rick had, you know, some back injuries, Bruggers was there, and then John. So yeah, that was something else.
At what point did you know you're going to crash? Did the pilot announce it? Did anybody say anything in the plane that when you did?
I don't remember anything past seeing that light and the buzzer. I don't.
Well, I mean, before that, you said you had started to assume crash position. You're worried, but did you know for sure?
He didn't say anything. Just everybody knew once that left engine started sputtering. You know, you're not going to go much further.
Right.
You know, the only thing you wanted was to get past the water. Because the Cape Fear at that time, a lot of shipping goes through there. So, you know, container ship. So it's deep water. You know, so, you know, it's not crashing in shallow water.
You're not going to wade out of that river.
No. Yeah. So, yeah, no.
How long a recovery was it for you, David?
My wife said, because there again, I was a little nuts. She said it took over 6 months. 6 months before she noticed that I was getting some of my memory back. She still accuses me every now and then.
It's a convenient excuse now. Well, honey, I can't remember my head.
That's right. But
So,
yeah,
of course, you wasn't at the show or anything, but did the show go on that night?
I don't know.
Yeah, you don't remember.
I don't remember. I don't
Wow.
know.
Wow.
How
Yeah, you
did people know to come get you? Did the pilot call and say we're crashing, or people?
Oh
just
yeah.
crash?
The pilot, I'm sure issued a Mayday. That the planes. I'm flying on one engine, need a runway, and they directed him to that runway, which is not being used very much. The thing is, if he hadn't have stalled, we would have landed, that, let's say 100 yards or 50 yards there before a runway. You've got that dirt area. That's where we would have been. We could have made it. But the stall was, you go and we hit the railroad embankment.
Did the plane ever burn? You talk about Johnny smelled gas and all that stuff.
No, never did. Never did.
You had no gas in it, right? Or was it?
Yeah, well, they had fumes, but it never burned.
Yeah.
Never burned. No, never did. Thank goodness.
Did you have much fear of getting on a plane after that?
Oh, hell
life
yeah.
depends on getting on planes.
Right. Even to this day, but the first flight I took was from Charlotte to Raleigh. That was my test flight. Mm-hmm. And I was white knuckled the whole time. And that time it was a Piedmont Airlines. Oh. And the flight attendant even came by and she said, asked me if I was all right. And Jimmy was behind me. And so Jimmy explained to her, because I wasn't talking. That was probably one of the longest flights I'd ever been on. It probably takes 30 minutes.